Hello and good afternoon. I originally planned to restart my podcast in 2025 with much more content, but after the horrific incidents in Magdeburg, I decided to record a quick video with kind of a short analytical part and also an interview I did with Peter Cardwell on Talk TV, because there's a lot going on and I think there is an attempt to shift the narrative slightly away from what actually happened. And I think if we look at the facts as they present themselves, what we do know is that unfortunately, once again, an individual with a migrant background, the individual in question came to Germany in 2006, conducted a horrific crime, in this case plowing a car through a Christmas market. At the time of speaking and recording this video, there are 5 people dead, apparently over 200 injured. Many of them will never live a life as they were used to, as they lived it before. So this is an absolute tragedy, might be the wrong word. It's a crime. It is something that did not have to happen if Germany would have had a more careful and more considered migration policy, and not what happened under Angela Merkel and her successors. Now, there is the attempt by the media that apparently, based on some social media posts, the individual in question was an AfD, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, you name it, sympathizer, so that this actually was a far-right incident. But I think once again, we'll see as the evidence comes in what's true about this. There are also some interesting commentators who speak Turkish, who are from the Muslim community in Germany, who say they were contacted by the individual in question and that a different picture might emerge, that he was pretending to be anti-AfD, that he was pretending to be pro-AfD, that he was pretending to be anti-Islamic, and this could be something like a false flag operation. And I'm just putting the information out there. This is, there's a lot of information coming in from all kinds of social media channels, but what we do know is that somebody, an individual from Saudi Arabia who came to Germany in 2006, who got asylum, who got citizenship, decided to kill a lot of people at a Christmas market a few days before Christmas, almost precisely to the day when there was the anniversary of a similar incident that happened in Berlin at the Breitenscheidplatz 8 years ago. So seems very odd to me that if you say you want to do something against Islamization, you try to kill a very high number of Christians. The other thing we have to keep in mind is the idea what the media is trying to do now, to reframe this whole story in a way to say, well, this is a kind of far-right incident now, right? Because the person in question once posted something or retweeted something from Alice Weidel or the AfD. I think potentially is an attempt to make us lose sight of the fact that whenever the number of migrants from a certain part of the world is increasing, the security of people in Europe, particularly in Western Europe, is decreasing. There is no risk at Christmas markets in Poland. There is no risk at Christmas markets in Hungary. There is no risk at Christmas markets in the Baltics. And I think that's the bigger picture. So if there is actually an Islamist background or not is almost of secondary concern, because there is, unfortunately, once again, a migrant background. And it seems a little bit absurd if we think about the pictures we saw in recent weeks, when you have all these banning of knives in Germany, and when elderly ladies have been stopped and frisked by the German police to see whether they have a small pocket knife or a Swiss Army knife in their bag. But apparently if somebody wants to run a car through people, kill people, and actually posted about his plans to kill Germans on his social media, nothing happened. Nobody looked at the person. Apparently the Saudi authorities were warning the German authorities. People that this guy was in touch with were also passing on the information to the German authorities, and nothing happened. And as I say in the conversation with Peter Cardwell, it appears as once again, if there is an individual with a migrant background, there is two-tier policing, that the authorities turn a blind eye, just as they did with Rotherham in the UK with the grooming gangs, just as it happened with Southport. More information will come in the weeks and days ahead, and we'll try to keep you up to date. This was just a quick statement, and I also edit the conversation with Peter Cardwell. I wish all of you, even in these tragic and horrific times, Merry Christmas. Have time with your family, spend it with loved ones, and let's hope that the next years, and especially 2025, will finally bring the change that we're all hoping for.
Great to have you on this morning. What do you make of this?
Well, I think we have to look at the dimensions, and before we go into the details, let's just look at I think a major fact, which is Germany is one of the oldest Christian countries in the world, and it's now a land where if you want to go to a Christmas market, you have to fear for your life. This is as if in Turkey which has about the same population as Germany, you would have to be afraid to go to Friday prayer because a non-Turkish person might ran your car through the people who are praying.
Yes.
So there is a migrant element to this. And I think the narrative, the framing that is emerging, that this is actually a far-right incident, that this is actually Elon Musk, the AfD, and Tommy Robinson who were the motivation behind this, I think is just not true. This is very similar to what we saw happening in Rotherham and with the grooming gangs in the UK, because just as a reminder to your viewers and listeners, Germany is a country, when you make a joke about Robert Habeck, the Green Minister for the Economy, the police rings at your door. But if a guy has 40,000, as your previous guest correctly pointed out, followers on Twitter and is openly tweeting about his plans to bring war to Germany and the German people, nobody investigates the guy. And I would suspect the reason is because he was a migrant, because he had an asylum-seeking background, so the authorities turned a blind eye, just as they did in the UK.
And there are big questions for them as well. There are big questions as well about what this guy's motivations actually are, because there seem to be at least some contradictions here as well.
Well, we will find out. I do have to admit, the idea that if you want to strike against the Islamization of Europe, that you kill as many Christian families at a Christmas market, that seems very odd to me. The narrative came out very quickly. I'm going to wait for the evidence to come in. But I just say, let's be very careful about this. This is a little bit kind of a reminder of what happened with Southport as well, right? Where gradually more and more information came in. And I have to say it, nobody can change that fact. If Germany would have had stricter immigration laws, right, if they would have been more careful and more observant regarding whom they let into the country, this would not have happened. So the idea what's happening on the German media, and I don't want to shift the topic, but this is important, to say, well, actually, this is an AfD sympathizer. Actually, this was a far-right incident. I think that's a very dangerous path to go down.
Just to say, we can see on the screen, if you are indeed watching, if you're listening on the radio, I'll describe it to you. The Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, is walking through the market now. He has gone to Magdeburg, which is, I think, about 60 miles southwest of Berlin. And that is the Chancellor, essentially the Prime Minister of Germany, going through the market now with a lot of people around him, hearing what has happened and so on. There's a lot of information as well about the alleged attacker here, Ralph, in terms of Saudi Arabia. They formally requested his extradition. That was denied by Germany, citing human rights requests. He has sort of reinvented himself as a dissident, publicly declaring himself an atheist and an ex-Muslim. I mean, how much do you think we can actually believe about his story?
Well, I would say even if the story is true, it doesn't change the broader picture, which is, number one, the so-called lone wolf apparently was a known wolf. So the Saudi Arabian authorities knew about him. Apparently, again, he was very active on social media. So this was not, and he was a well-respected, apparently, doctor, a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist, as far as I know at this point.
A psychiatrist, so that's right,
Yeah, this was not some weird guy living in his mother's basement. So this is kind of this idea, the kind of a lone wolf nobody knew about. Apparently that is not true. And the second point is, I don't think we should too much fixate on whether or not it was an Islamist or non-Islamist motivation. The point remains the same. The problem that we see is there's a growing number of people, very often with a migrant background from very specific areas of the world, because, he was not Dutch, he was not Norwegian, he was not British, that apparently seem to be much more susceptible to acts of violence like driving a car into a Christmas market. I mean, this is, as I said, it's the same, and forgive me if I make this comparison, with what happened with the grooming gangs in the UK. It doesn't matter whether there is an explicit, Islamic background to this. The point is that if cultures clash, apparently it leads to whether it's an identity confusion or psychological problems, but these things then tend to happen. And I find the idea atrocious that in a majority Christian country, at least on paper, you apparently can no longer go to a Christmas market with your children because you have to be afraid that they get killed. And just as a quick other reminder, I mean, we saw pictures on social media where German police was frisking elderly women on whether or not they have a small pocket knife in their bag. But the guy who posts on social media, I will bring war to Germany, and I think he said, I will die this year because of what I plan to do. This guy basically passes by the system without being any questions asked. I think this is absurd. And now shifting the narrative, I really want to say this again, to kind of downplay this and say, oh, well, he reposted something from the AfD, so all of this is not really a problem. Again, it's an absurd statement.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's interesting as well. I mean, I just want to show that sign one more time that a friend of mine who was at a Christmas market in Frankfurt. I mean, there's so many Christmas markets in Germany, Austria as well. I know there are lots of places where this is a big thing. People go there. Yet as we sit here in 2024, we have these warnings on the fact that what has happened previously was 8 years ago, and indeed last night. A sign that a friend sent me. She took a picture of the Frankfurt Christmas market. No guns, knives, knuckle dusters or sprays, and horns and things. I mean, these really, what should be the most wholesome of activities, what should be the most traditional and indeed enjoyable of activities, and helping those businesses make a bit of money around Christmas time, have now become a focus yet again of terrorism, Ralph.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for those of your viewers who see the picture now, they can put cars on this as well. And by the way, another very shameful role was once again played by the media. When this incident happened, this horrific incident, all the headlines were car drove into a crowd.
Car kills people. Well, someone was driving the car, and someone was driving the car and had that motivation. Yes, I heard that and saw that in a lot of the media, including the BBC Midnight News last night, which I listened to, saying a car has careered into people in Germany. I mean, it's more than that. There's a driver, and that driver has motivations, and that driver has brought an act of terror to mainland Europe.
Yeah, and now the narrative is shifting. So as long as everybody suspected that it has an Islamist background, the perpetrator in the mainstream media was the car. Now that he can be connected to the AfD, all of a sudden the perpetrator is actually the AfD. So this shows you the media is also, I just want to point this out because this is going to be also a story over the next couple of days. There is a broader narrative that is also being pushed by the media, but the facts on the ground remain. This is a result of a failed migration policy. It is the consequence of authorities that are not willing to keep an eye on the migrant community, at least at specific parts of the migrant community. And it is once again proof that if you're part of a certain segment of the society, you can post extremely violent comments. And basically, he announced what he plans to do in one way or another on the internet without anybody taking a look at you. I think this is worrisome. This is a version of two-tier policing. It's just a German version of it.
Olaf Scholz now, the Chancellor of Germany, laying flowers at the point where some of those people lost their lives. We know at least 2 people have lost their lives. There are reports of 4, but that's unconfirmed. There are all sorts of floral tributes there as well. Just speaking of politicians, Ralph, I wonder what effect do you think this will happen on the various elections that are happening in Germany in a couple of months' time?
I think the effect will be quite substantial. Because migration has always been a top issue on the radar of the German people, not all over continental Europe, but also in the United Kingdom. And these incidents, these horrible incidents, it's just that most people sense that 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago, these things did not happen. I mean, as I always say, there doesn't have to be a religious background, but there is, and I say this, it pains me as well, but I think we have to look the fact straight into the eye. Very often, there is a migrant background to this. And as I said, this can have many reasons, but one thing is clear, that as societies become more diverse, as they become more multicultural, they are becoming less safe. I mean, we can talk about this for hours, and I know you do on your show, Peter, as well, but there are completely new categories of crime. I mean, for example, gang rape was not really a crime element in German crime statistics 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now you have every second, third day you have one of these incidents in Germany. And again, this is very closely connected to mass migration. As I always say, I take no pleasure in saying this. So I would much rather talk with you about, Christmas songs and season's greetings and what we plan, to give to our friends and family. But unfortunately, it seems that our traditional way of lives are under threat.
Well, this is the grim reality for people in Germany and Magdeburg today. Ralph, thank you. That's Ralph Scholhammer there, political theorist.